19 steps, the little landing, and then 5 steps down into the booking hall.
London's biggest civilian disaster of the Second World War.
I just couldn't believe what I saw. It was like a nightmare, really.
173 people dead, 62 of them young children.
It's undescribable what went on in them few minutes that most of the people died.
Tonight we reveal what really happened at the Bethnal Green Tube disaster of 1943.
I think that all the way through, that disaster down there was a bit of a cover-up all the way through.
Bethnal Green had suffered more than most of London at the hands of Hitler's Luftwaffe during the Blitz. But by 1943 the tide was turning. The Blitz had been over for 2 years, bombing raids were becoming less frequent, and the sound of anti-aircraft was the third. Everything changed catastrophically. A disaster was about to strike the locals seeking shelter in the half-built tube station. The sirens and spotlights announced that a new threat, even more terrible than the Luftwaffe, was imminent.
My dad was on the outside toilet and I ran out to see him. You just took your time, you just walked to the tube here, because the Blitz had been over for a full year.
16-year-old evacuee Reg Baker had just returned to his home in East London.
By the time the searchlight was on, we knew that that was the time to move. And we was running down Victoria Park Square, wanting to see the entrance to the tube, which couldn't come up fast enough.
Alf Morris had been in London all through the Blitz and knew how to react to the sirens and searchlights that warned of an imminent attack.
Suddenly these new AK guns opened up Victoria Park and everybody started panicking and they started running.
When we got down about as far as where I'm standing, the rockets went across the park, went across here, and there was a tremendous...
Who runs the entrance? And when we got to the entrance, that's when they was all panicking, everybody coming from the cinemas, Bethnal Green Road, Roman Road, you name it. The buses were dropping people off.
Locals would approach the tube from a number of different directions. Some would come along Roman Road to the east, others through the public gardens either side of the station, and yet more would flood out of the pubs on Green Road to the west. The problem was that there was just one dark, narrow entrance.
Everybody just leapt forward and calling out, there's bombs, there's bombs, there's bombs. They're bombing us, they're bombing us. And with that, the surge of the people coming down, I gradually come down here, down, all the way down.
The time me and my father got to the entrance upstairs, all this panicking, people coming from all directions, and I think he said it, let's run behind the Salmon and Ball pub, which is opposite, and there were shelters behind there, underneath the railway arches.
And I got as far as here, and I was wedged against here, because the people were still falling.
But that split-second decision saved their lives.
The people were still coming forward, they were still falling forward, and it was gradually filling up here. All of a sudden, I rose enough for them to get their hands under my armpits, and she pulled, and somebody else pulled with her, and I come.
They couldn't pull anyone from the bottom because they was like sardines, so they pulled my sister from the top, and that's why she's alive today.
173 people, 62 of them children, were crushed to death in a matter of seconds. Within minutes, the emergency services, headed by the air raid wardens, the ARP, had taken control. One of the ARP's messenger boys at the time was 16-year-old James Hunt.
All the sort of bodies laying right the way down, and as I come down about here, just about here, I helped to get some youngsters up, because I was only little myself, and I picked up most of the young children, about 7, 8 year old and that, and I took them around here and we laid them all down on blankets, materatas, and laid them all outside here, and we went down a few more to fetch up the little babies, a couple of little, I think it was about 2-year-old babies, year old.
Luckily, not everyone used the tube station at Bethnal Green as a sanctuary. Some preferred to take their chances above ground. Joan Keeper and her parents were in a railway arch a stone's throw from the disaster. A young girl at the time, she can still vividly remember the horrific aftermath.
We didn't know the accident had happened until we saw the dead bodies coming out on stretchers. All the stretchers was coming over and they all laid them in rows all outside the Salmon and Ball pub here, next door. And what I saw, all their faces was men, women and children, young as 5 or 6, where they'd been squashed. And I can't say, it was all, their insides hanging out. And my dad got hold of me and he covered my eyes. He said, "You don't want to see that."
There wasn't a bus around for it, so I started to walk up, and on the way, about halfway to my grandmother's place, I came across this scene that obviously something was happening at the tube station.
17-year-old Eric Linden had stayed at home during the alert, but had ventured out to look for his father, a warden, who'd left home just a few hours earlier.
When I got back home, somebody had obviously been, I don't know who, and told my mother that my father was actually down in the tube, along with the other poor people who'd got suffocated down there. And as I say, the thing that I remember particularly, and the only thing that was really vivid, was my mother screaming from the top of the stairs, "A boy 17 needs his father."
The police come and they stopped all the number 8 buses along Bethnal Green Road and all the traffic, and they got every man, woman and teenager, or not the little ones, but to hold hands and make a ring from the 4 corners over the tube to the pub to Paradise Row opposite, and a museum with a church, and we all held hands and there was a great big ring of people, and that was to stop the traffic.
The people of Bethnal Green were used to pulling together in times of need. In the few months between September 1940 and May 1941, 30,000 Londoners had been killed by the Luftwaffe during the Blitz. 1.2 million homes were destroyed, and most of them were in the East End of London.
Never since the Great Fire of 1666 has such a roaring furnace swept through our capital. The Luftwaffe clearly had orders to destroy the British Empire by burning out its heart.
Everyone by now knew the sound of an approaching bomber or a falling bomb.
First of all, you'd hear the air raid siren. Then you'd make your way, not always straight away to the shelter. You'd just wait to see what's happening, because now and again you would get a false alarm. After the air raid siren, you'd hear the distant rumble of guns. Then you'd hear the drone of the aircraft. And shortly after, you'd hear the crash of the bombs.
That's the all clear going, and that's what people waited for. They felt safe then, that the all clear was going. And then they emerged from the shelters, wherever they were. The underground, they used to tell you it was the all clear had gone. The wardens down there used to tell you it was gone. That was a nice sound to hear for loads of people.
These were people who wouldn't panic at the sound of a raid or a siren. They just got on with life as normal. People found a way of working around the aerial bombardment.
They took it in their strides, you know. It was the old community spirit then. You know, most people lived in rows of houses then, and relatives all moved next to one another, were down the same street.
When the dustbin men come round on the lorry, they used to play music. Forget that now, with that out loud speakers. I think something to do with keeping the morale up of people, you know. Whenever there was a bomb, a shop got bombed, you'd see open as usual, no matter what they were selling, you know. East End was, you know, they could take it. Normally
you went to the pictures in the evening, and or they'd sit at home listening to the wireless, because there was no television then, and whatever they did, played cards indoors.